The theme is embracing technology and building an online business. It covers off on building revenue channels, obviously, the delivery of service and goods, as well as things like cybersecurity and digital disruption. Firstly, we've got Nikki, Yeaman from CustumeBox. So CostumeBox was founded in 2007 by Nikki and her business partner Roma. They have a range of 400 costumes, constituting about 20,000 items, it says on your website anyway. And perhaps most impressively, you've dispatched, since you've incorporated the business, over 3 million costumes to your client base, which is fascinating. When I was pulling this together, I was reminded of the movie Van Wilder, Party Liaison, and I suspect that Nikki might challenge Van in that regard as a party liaison with the costumes. Nikki's got clients right across Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Europe and the US, and really her business is driven by a reliable and the fast delivery of an unmatched product range. Second, we've got Nigel Dobson, who's with the ANZ. Nigel's current role with the ANZ is as the business service lead domain, which is an expansive role. Nigel's spent 9 years, I think, with the ANZ in various executive positions, but continually across payments and cash management. So that's transactional banking. So that's critical to what we see in digital disruption from a banking perspective. A lot of the work that we do is in partnership with other providers, particularly as it pertains to payment platforms. Nigel's current role includes fraud monitoring and also the unenviable task of implementing ANZ's group payment platform. We've got also on the end there Kobi Simmat, who runs best practice certification. Kobi is the CEO and founder of BPC. It is a leading provider of ISO standard certification. As Kobi explained to me earlier today, ISO standard certification is the mechanism by which one implements a business plan. Kobi's moving his business not just to that realm, but also into the advisory space, because one of the things he's noticed is not just about implementing a business plan, it's also understanding the strategy which underpins the business plan. So he'll have some interesting thoughts pertaining to that. And finally, it would be remiss of me not to introduce our facilitator today, Brett Kelly, who's the Executive Chairman of Kelly Partners Group, business coach, executive coach, and best-selling author, if that wasn't enough, of collective wisdom. We're happy and proud to have you along today, and thanks for your support in our endeavours. I'll pass over now to Brett, who's going to facilitate the introduction.
Thanks so much to James from ANZ and our team here from our office in the Northern Beaches of Bookbar, Danny Chiha here, and Chris Dent. Where did Chris go? There he is, on the back there. The guys have organised this event. The genesis of these local business heroes events was to find people in local areas that were doing a really great job in their business. A lot of people think, that the only thing that happens in our Sydney economy is in George Street. It's not actually true. What we find with our offices all around Sydney is that there's really great things happening everywhere. So, just very quick background, our firm just focuses on helping private business owners get from where they are to where they want to be. We started in 2006 in North Sydney, and since then have grown through Northern Beaches, Central Coast, Norwest, Penrith, Bathurst, Oran Park, Campbelltown, Barrel and Wollongong. And that was really about putting a circle around Sydney, where the growth is around Sydney, and now in the Sydney CBD. We found accountants are not that energetic, and we thought that if we added a bit of energy-based systems and processes, that'd be great. Our guys are, which is very helpful. So look, we've got a great panel. The idea of the event is ask some questions, get some answers, and take some questions from you guys, and then make sure there's some time to hang around and have a chat. It's a beautiful day, going once, twice, 3 times. So well done to the team for putting this together. So Nikki, fantastic to meet you today. The business looks so interesting. I made the comment that I think Kate Middleton's parents made a bit of money out of organising parties, so the idea is fantastic. Your personal story is really, really interesting. You came from a career in archaeology to a retail business owner. What drove that change?
It's a necessity, really. I got pregnant. I was newly married and a new archaeologist, and going off on digs away for a week at a time or 2 weeks at a time, and found myself pregnant and thought, how's this going to work? It's not. I'm in Manly in Sydney, so and I couldn't work. I was pregnant and bad back, so I ended up reading business books, and that's when I started writing a file. Actually, wrote a file of ideas and what I would do. And then it wasn't until I met my business partner Roma in the obstetrician's office while I was pregnant that we got to talking and realised it's something we both had harboured the desire to do one day. She was working in Sheraton Hotels management, and so she was running the systems and processes kind of person. And it was a couple more years and another child before we got onto it and started the first business.
Now, you've mentioned you were reading some business books. What was the best book you read?
It was the E-Myth, I think, was what I remember. It's very much time ago.
I do have this question I've been given. Tell us about this chance meeting with your future business partner, Roma. So you're in the obstetrician's office. This is going to get really good, right? So the obstetrician kept you waiting. I won't ask why.
I don't know. Does anyone know Dr. Roma? Unfortunately, he died now, but you'd have a time at 9 o'clock in the morning. You just got to sit there, and you'd wait an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours until he saw you. I don't quite know what that strategy was, but I was pregnant, nothing else to do, and there's lots of nice women to talk to. So Roma and I had the same appointments every month, so we got to know each other. And then same others for
Nigel, great to meet you. You've specialised in transaction banking and payment platforms for many years. How do you characterise the change in the payment systems, transactional banking, over the last 10 years? And what do you think the greatest benefits are to business owners?
Thank you and good afternoon. Pleasure to be here today. Look, 10 years is a long time in technology, right? Cast your mind back. Who had an iPhone back in 2008? Not me, my wife did. But, it's so much has changed, and you want to call it the next industrial revolution. I think that's probably accurate, and we're living through that right now. One of the things that's changed profoundly, of course, is what our customers are doing. And I just got some stats earlier about online retail. And that online retail in Australia is growing at about 15 to 20% a year. But of course it's a much smaller sector than the traditional retail sector, which is growing around 2%. But that absolute growth in the digital retail space, that 15 to 20%, is the same quantum as the 2% in traditional bricks and mortar. So effectively you're growing in the digital category by as much, absolutely, each year, which I think is phenomenal. And what that means is for us that our clients and their customers are interacting digitally. So we as a bank needed to give increasingly digital solutions. It changes the way you take payments, it changes the way the type of payments you receive, it changes the way you manage data and security, and becomes a whole different paradigm. And I think that going forward, there's three things that are really key in terms of the way we approach our clients around cash management and transaction banking, or just facilitating commerce. One is mobility, second is service-enabled APIs, and real time. And those are three categories. I'm not necessarily go through in detail now, but those are profoundly different trends and drivers than you would have seen if you'd asked me the same question 10 years ago.
Say those again.
I have notes. So, mobility, digital-first companies are sprouting all over the place, right? And so banks have to respond to, how do you bank a digital-first company? Often they have very few assets, they've got great ideas, they clearly have a digital engagement strategy, and what is it that a bank can do to enable that? And in fact, the other point to note is that banks don't always have all the ideas, or the best ideas, or the best solutions, and so we become a great partner with a number of best-of-breed solution providers so that our customers get as broad a choice as possible, and that we can allow ourselves and our customers to stay right at the forefront of technology. APIs are an incredibly important part of, I'm sure you have APIs that you bring into your digital ecosystem, and as a banking provider we need to increasingly get expert at providing financial services APIs, but also understand how to integrate those into non-native APIs, geolocation services and all range of various things that you would have. And in real time, everybody wants everything right now, right? The industry in Australia just finished spending about $1 billion on real-time payments platform, which has gradually gone live over the last week or two. We participated in that, and we're rolling that out over the next several weeks. What that would mean is, for an online merchant, is that you'll be able to take payments through an account-to-account interaction in real time, rather than relying necessarily on schemes or the cards you do today, which can be expensive.
So I'm just taking some notes here. I don't know if anyone else has. Maybe everyone's got a better memory than me. But what are those three things you get?
Mobility,
Okay.
service-enabled APIs,
Anyone else writing them down?
and real-time.
Okay, so mobility, service-enabled APIs. What was the last one? Real-time.
Real-time.
It's all the projects we worked on last year.
All the projects you worked
It's all the
on.
projects we worked on last year.
Right, well come on, let's move this
Sorry, just while we've got you there, just for the lingo, not very savvy, what's API stand for?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I didn't.
Application program interface. But what it means is, you go onto any website, you can probably explain it too. You go onto any website, take a restaurant, take this restaurant, right? It'll have, where am I? I'm at the, that's an API, it's a location API by Google Maps, right? What's my menu? The menu, if you download the menu, that's probably an API too. So it's simply just software talking to software, and we interact with them all day, every day.
Thank you.
Okay, cool.
Look, I don't know everybody here, but for the people that get to know me, I'm a GF artist, it's a technical term. I found that if I go to things and I write things down, I remember them. I've got quite a good memory, but I had a little phone there full of really great notes that I've taken at different things like this, and it's turned out to be quite interesting. I'll just give you an aside. I bought a firm into an accounting firm, and its largest client, I'd been to a function like this about 3 years before. And when I went to see him for the first time, I said, yes, we have met before. I came to a function like this, and I opened my phone and I looked up his name and I said, yeah, your 10 life lessons that you talked about were these. Needless to say, him and I got on pretty well because he thought that I'd paid attention to him, which is good. You know, it's a small world and things happen over time, which is funny. Kobi, great to meet you. What's your mate's name over here?
Jack.
We should introduce Jack as well. I've noticed that you guys have matching shirts. I wasn't sure whether you're married or just work together.
Yeah. Both, yeah.
Both, you're a cute couple. You've run an advisory firm for small business for many years. Tell us a bit about your client base, and what are your clients most concerned about when they're considering investment in an online company?
Yeah, thanks, and thanks everyone for coming today. I guess our client base at this point in time is about 1,200 companies in Australia, New Zealand, increasingly places like the US, China, through some of the Asia Pacific Rim. And ISO certification has been something that's been around since 1994. So it's a flooded marketplace, it's a cutthroat marketplace, and we walked into a marketplace and said we're going to be the best in a place and a space. And that has come through with little small things that we do, like the name of our business, best practice, because that's ultimately what it's all about, and simply wearing a black shirt with a logo on it. So our client base are organisations. They're organisations. They are, and when I say organisation, that's a group of people trying to execute someone's vision, someone's mission, someone's strategy. Our industry got very, very lost and very, very caught up in milk crates full of folders and policies and procedures, and people thought that to run a big organisation and grow an organisation, that's what you needed to do, but it's simply not the case. So when we talk about our client base and we talk about who they are, they're organisations. So they're a group of people, and they can be anything from, and I mean the literature there says small business, but we work with most of Australia's largest organisations. We're working with Australia's largest bank, for example, just to talk about this particular industry. But if I use Northern Beaches as an example, I spent a couple of days this week with Fujifilm. They're in Old Pittwater Road. You know, they're halfway between my office and Vic's office. That little hub down there is somewhere I'm very passionate about. And they're good examples of companies that have got 1, 2, 3, 5, 50 people. And we help them think about the risks that their organisations have across all platforms of risk: financial, marketing, customer service, OH&S, data security, which is a thread through today. And there are ways in the international standards arena, there are ways to take those risks and manage them and follow effectively a cookbook. And so if we want to make an amazing chocolate cake, as an example, you go Google and find out, 5 or 6 different recipes, and off you go and follow the one that you think's a good idea. The ISO community has spent many, many years through many, many different ways and means and organisations coming up with ways to execute strategy. And that's what we've done, is just take all the simple stuff, all the fun stuff, all the good stuff, and we're passionate about helping companies make profit at the end of the day. Profitability could be zero because they could be a not-for-profit, but it's about financial sustainability, environment sustainability, safety. That's what we do. So we have a lot of fun. We have a team of 30 assessors running around the globe doing assessments. And I think your second question, just to quickly answer it, was around what are they concerned about? The house is tied to the overdraft for about 800,000 businesses in this country. And I don't know the exact numbers, but there's approximately 8,000 companies on the stock exchange, and they get a lot of attention, but business exists in the place where my house is, thanks to Michael, is pinned to my overdraft. And so I run my business every day, and I have all the emotions and all the feelings, and I go to bed at 11 o'clock at night saying to my wife, I just got another curveball today that I've never had before. And yesterday I got 2 curveballs that I hadn't had before. And I was saying to Kelly this morning, like, why is the universe punishing us? But then we forget that there is all this great stuff, like an amazing location in Manly and, great family and all that sort of stuff. And it's about being mindful. So the first thing we'll do is remind our clients that this is an amazing time to be living and amazing results. Let's just focus on what we're there to do. We're there to pay for that great lifestyle, all that sort of stuff. So that's what I'm passionate about. And we take that into a brown cardigan, boring environment and try and make it fun. And then we are moving into the advisory space because we've got a great, thank you, we've got a great system which is an already identified, already proved, already simple international set of standards to run companies. And people just got lost in the complexity. So they want simple stuff that means they're not going to lose their house, that means they're going to grow their business, execute their vision, look after people, send people home healthy, safe, look after the environment, all that sort of stuff.
Thanks, Kobi. Now, Nikki, surveys indicate that price, delivery, special offers, and increased payment security are all key in driving online traffic. What strategies have worked well for you in your business?
Those things are all important, but they're not what drive traffic. They're what drive conversion. Once you get the traffic to your site, you get someone to actually buy from you. About 95% of people, or actually, that come to our site don't buy from us. So, that's normal. That's a good conversion rate. 5% is a good conversion rate. So that conversion is really important, and that's probably what that question really speaks to. But getting traffic to your site in the first place is a whole other ballgame. You can sell your house and give the money to Google and try and get it up there. We spend about 1.6 million a year on Google AdWords. Yeah, no Christmas card enough. But then, trying to make a brand, we sell great customer service, repeat customers, word of mouth. When we started the business, our goal was to be the first name that came to mind in our costume party. And I think we're starting to get there, so that's exciting. So yeah, driving traffic to your website, that's marketing. There's a million different ways for different businesses to drive that, whether you're a mass market or whether you're a smaller niche business, and social media is going to be your main driver. But for us, sadly, it's Google AdWords. We have a lot of organic traffic, more than half is organic. People just come to us because they know of us, so they already come up in natural listings, but it's paid. But getting onto the drivers, what makes people buy from us once they have found us. And I think price has to be right, and people have to trust that you're a bona fide, real website, and you're not going to stick them. So there's trust, and there are a lot of things that go into trust. I think the big padlock on the website can't be dismissed. That means nothing, but that works. Having the security badge and all that, but also, and obviously you have to be PCI compliant and safe for the bank, so they won't give you a payment gateway anyway. But the big thing for us was free overnight delivery. That's the single biggest driver. That and range, the single biggest drivers of conversion.
the second question here is logistics are key to the development and sustainability of an online retail business model. How have you incorporated your understanding in this area?
So I guess logistics for us is stock in and stock out. Our warehouse is probably our most important part of our business. If that's not right, then nothing's going to work. So I think we're about 5 million turnover. We had to get any bigger, there was just no way without a very smart warehousing system. So everything's barcoded, scanned in, scanned out. It's paperless pick, so all our staff have iPods on their wrists and they go around and tells them what aisle, what row, what number to go to. There's a picture of what they have to pick. They scan it there in the tub, put it into their tub, keep going on, tells them the path around the warehouse, back to dispatch. Won't print the label to send it to scan all the correct items into the box so you can never send the wrong thing. And then we have trucks just coming all day to take the stock away. So it has to be like that. If you're sending customers the wrong item once, that's, you're done for.
The last two questions here, Nikki. Would you invest in a physical store, and how important are mobile apps and mobile friendly websites?
Answer to the first question is yes. We're currently looking at rolling out a chain of stores Australia-wide. They would be more party-based rather than costume-based. Party suppliers, we do both. And as the mobile apps versus mobile websites, we don't have an app as such. We have a mobile website, a specific different website for mobile as for online, as for desktop. We're transitioning to a new website platform which the site will be responsive to mobile, so instead of having to do things twice, once for the mobile site and once for the website, graphics and that kind of thing, it will just be done once, so it'll be much more efficient. But in terms of which is more important, what an app or a mobile, I think an app's great for a fashion site or somewhere that you're going to look at all the time. I think our customers would typically come to us twice a year. And I don't think you want to download an app onto your phone for something that's twice a year. I think they'd rather just go to a really good, well-functioning website, mobile site.
Thank you. Nigel, how does ANZ work with clients to ensure secure payment channels? And what security provisions should be front of mind for a business owner?
Excellent question. Look, I think firstly we recognise that people like Nikki and Roma want to run a business and want to attract people to their website and ship goods. Right? They don't really want to spend a great deal of time figuring out how they get the payment, although that's critical, obviously. So cash flow is paramount, naturally. So what we do, we've taken a point of view that we don't believe that we can, as an organisation, stay ahead of the technology frontier and have the best solution all the time for every possible business circumstance. So we've gone with a best-of-breed kind of model, which allows us to bring a range of options to our customers, be they payment gateways or various other, even alternative acquiring capability. So whatever makes sense for the customers, shape, size, their degree of maturity, how big a technology kind of influence they have within their company, and how savvy they are in terms of managing that. So we have solutions that allow them to outsource that data piece, the security piece, the PCI DSS. If they want to hold the data themselves, equally that's another choice. There's a whole range of choices that if you're a single organisation like ANZ, designing a range of solutions for all of those circumstances is actually kind of difficult. So we have a very strong partnership bias, as I say, best of breed. And in doing so, we hold things like fraud monitoring and data security at the forefront, but also help our clients make the right choices for them depending on what their technology capability is and what their circumstances are, what kind of business are they in. But look, this is you touched on it yourself, Kobi. This is an area where data security and fraud are increasingly in the forefront of small business and even large business minds. We are focused as much on education as we are on implementation, right? So implementation we leave often to really specialist providers, but education we feel is a responsibility. In fact, we're about to roll out a service for our online customers, which gives them an ability to download a service provided by another partner, which can check for malware and give them certain guidance around how they secure their perimeter and a whole bunch of things like that. So we think that's a really valuable service for small business. May not necessarily apply to you, your business, but that's very much how we think about our customers. We're there to help them be successful and thrive, and if we need to bring partnerships into that to make that ecosystem work best, then we'll do that.
And Nigel, what are the key things a customer, or the key customer questions that a new customer should ask, I guess, or an existing one, talking with a payment provider, establishing and enhancing their online presence?
I mean, it's much of what I just mentioned. Is the provider they choose, is it a gateway potentially they choose, is it an established company, they have a reputation, they have good fraud monitoring tools, can they handle that PCI piece of the equation on behalf of the customer? Do they have tokenization capability that can help the customer recognise a customer without necessarily holding their data? A whole range of things. Fraud, credentials, very important. So largely it comes down to us helping them find the right. We wouldn't put a partner in front of them that didn't tick most of those boxes, by the way. But they are, depending on their own circumstances, that list of questions, that menu will get very ticked off. Yes.
All right, Kobi, retailers need to consider their web strategy carefully and think about how it can be incorporated into the customer experience. But more broadly, how best can a business owner quantify this?
Yeah, look, I think that's a marketing question more than a web strategy question. And with our client base, we'll just say, well, the first question is, what's the average age of your customer? And my observation across all of our clients is that the average age stays the same. And we fail to acknowledge that in ourselves because we think we're the consumer. But what I've seen in my time from starting my business in 2004 till now is my average contact's age has stayed the same every year. And so they're now hanging out in a different place that they used to hang out. And to be brutally honest, I came today because it's Manly, but I get invited to speak at these events all the time, and I'm like, there's only 20 people, I'm gonna go hang out on YouTube. And Jack and I did a live YouTube broadcast very quickly before we left, and that's gone out to the world. 2 nights ago, I'm texting backwards and forwards with someone in Istanbul in Turkey because they've been able to use our services and consume our content, and their business is growing and changing and improving as a result. My people hang out on YouTube. They're going to YouTube and they're going to Google to learn. And so my question to you is, where are they hanging out? And I'm not going to presume, but I'm going to guess that the bulk of your customers are hanging out on the couch after the kids have gone to bed. And so that's exactly right. And the platform, and I would, you might automatically, someone would go, you should try Snapchat. It's like, well, not yet, because they're not old enough yet, if that makes sense. So, of course, it would be a strategy not to ignore and start to monitor, is my demographic moving into that space? So my question to you guys is, the decision makers that are provided with the data, and you've got a whole bunch of people working for you, they go do the research, they bring it in, where do they hang out? Because that's where I'm hanging out. Does that make sense? So it's not where your decision maker's hanging out, it's where the people that collect the data for your decision makers are hanging out and collecting that data. So it could be in a networking forum, it could be at a B&I breakfast, if you've ever done B&I and you go to your breakfast every week, It could be there, it could not be there. So I think the web strategy or the marketing strategy then starts to say, well, where are they? And another case study, good friend of mine there in the back of the room, shout out to Muscle Republic and Vic, and I'm one of a mate, but also one of his customers, and his customers hang out in the gym, but they also hang out on Instagram. And so thinking about that, it's not where are they, but where are they hanging out? Where are they consuming, learning, having fun, that sort of stuff. And I think that's probably the best question you can ask, because then you can start to brainstorm, mind map, okay, well, a web strategy is getting into that group efficiently at scale, if that makes sense.
So just to continue there, this question that you've got here, what are the key factors that you're considering when you're advising clients with regard to finding their target client?
So the key factors, we're not considering a key factor as such, we're asking a set of questions. So we're asking questions like, where do they hang out? And what makes them feel, and this is going to sound funny, but it's a good question, what will make your customer feel love, joy, and surprise. Because those are the three emotions in males and females that create confidence as another emotion, and confidence equals decision. Decision for the first yes, the second yes, the third yes, the transaction, the payment, the trust, the cash flow. So thinking through that strategy, and this is a crazy brown cardigan industry where I'm all of a sudden sitting in a sales meeting saying what would make them feel loved, but it makes sense, right? When your customers feel love, joy and surprise, you're a brand and you're attached to a brand. So when we're talking about marketing, there's all the metrics, the numbers, the SEO, the et cetera, but you can't have those conversations if you haven't had the conversation about an amazing customer experience. And I want everyone in the room right now to think about when was the last time that you had an amazing experience and how many people did you tell about it? And so, you know, there is a whole bunch of stuff. Like it's a 10-day conversation, if that makes sense. But it's those metrics about thinking about the customer experience. Then we can start to say, okay, where do they hang out? Is it online? Is it face-to-face? Is it networking? Is it in magazines? Is it at conferences? Is it, you know, we can just rattle off the list, if that makes sense. Did I answer the question?
That is a great answer to that question. I had three, but they're all sort of merged in there. And I think that story about who's your customer and where they hang out is spot on. So the last two questions for the group before we throw this microphone around the room for questions is really building an online presence, not just about understanding your customer, but understanding the security risks that can really kill off the trust that you want to build with that customer around cyber marketing, sales and data storage in particular. The second question, which I'll throw to you guys, is a lot of press around cryptocurrency. Are you guys going to accept cryptocurrency? If you did, which one? It's a whole other topic. But really, security online, its impact on trust in the business and crypto. What do you think about that, Nikki? That's a light question.
I generally don't do things I don't understand, and I don't understand it well enough. It's worth one thing today and one thing tomorrow. How would you deal with that? The short answer is no, not yet. I don't have that very compelling. Everyone else will have to start doing it before we do it. What was the other bit?
Security.
Security, yeah.
Cyber marketing.
Yeah, look, it's something I think a lot of big online retailers, or inside any online retailer, doesn't really like to talk about. Lots of us have had major hacks, us included. We've had two big ones. One in 2012, we had a Russian DOS attack with a ransom for 250 Bitcoin, as it turns out. 256 Bitcoin or something they wanted, which at the time was only about $750 worth. And we're about to buy the Bitcoin in case we decided at the last minute to pay it. If we had it now, it'd be $4.6 million. So that was a missed opportunity. But I wouldn't be sitting here. But we did, and we had an excellent IT company who put up a dummy site that they did attack and moved us to a new IP address and put us up, and it was the day before Halloween and we were turning over several $100,000 a day, and they saved us, and it was amazing. So that was our Russian attack. And we told the police, and there was and they told, anyway, nothing happens. And then we've had another one that somehow got into the website, just because there's bots all the time just spamming his site, trying to guess passwords, just constantly. They put machines on it, and it's going all the time, on every website, just constantly. And they guessed a password, and they got in, and I probably shouldn't be telling you guys this, but anyway. They put some little bit of code somewhere that was looking at people as they were putting their credit card details in. So we weren't storing any credit card details because we wouldn't be safe, but they were watching people do it. So that we did all the proper things, and we went through the whole system with the bank, and we're all good now. But you're only as good as the last patch or the Russians are smarter than us. So. It's horrible. It is.
So let me just carry on from that piece so I get on to crypto in a minute. Look, our organisation gets attacked probably about 200,000 or 300,000 times per day. Right, and it's these bots that are doing this unsuccessfully, as I might just reinforce. But There are armies of people out there and machines who just do this. This is their business model. And there's an arms race, right, for big companies and small, right? And we just have to keep ahead. One of the things that, I mentioned it before, we're going to roll out a security as a service for our customers so that they can check for malware, and look at this is precisely what happened to yours. I understand it. You probably had a malware that was sitting there watching keystrokes. We see that all the time. So we already do that for a large portion of our customer base today, have malware services. But it's hard to stay ahead. It's really challenging. You just have to keep on going. Now, one of the things the banking industry is looking at the moment is national digital identity. And if we, and I'm on a council that's looking at implementing something like this potentially, for online business, if implemented well, that could profoundly change your risk profile around fraud. And it would be a real game changer in terms of the industry. It won't have necessarily a vast impact on those attacks you just mentioned. And if you couple that with you got ransom for Bitcoin, because it's completely untraceable, right? I mean, they're not asking you for money anymore, right? I mean, that's a very bad business model because that's traceable. Bitcoin is completely anonymous, untraceable. Those wallets are only accessed by the people who have the private key, and that's why Bitcoin does get a really bad reputation. But I'm not going to defend it, but to say that it is, to say that cryptocurrencies are primarily used for money laundering, cyber attacks, ransomware, and terrorism funding is probably inaccurate, because there's something called cash, you've probably all heard of, that's been responsible for about 99% of it for every right? So I think it gets slightly unfairly labelled as a driver, but it's a very effective mechanism if that's the business you want to engage in. More generally, if we looked at, I actually run the blockchain business to whatever extent we have it in the bank today, so I lead that practice as well. And we've decoupled cryptocurrency from blockchain. We've people say that quite a lot. We think there's a lot of mileage in distributed ledger technology. We've got a number of pieces of work started in train at the moment that help us digitize information, share information reliably. So it's a profoundly interesting technology. The cryptocurrencies are a different beast. They're completely unmanageable. Recently, I thought it was amusing, the governor of the Reserve Bank, Philip Lowe, was at a conference, he was speaking, talking about Bitcoin and saying, should merchants accept it? At a coffee shop, for example. It was a sort of slightly flippant example, but the reality of that exchange would be that to process the transaction would cost more than the coffee itself, by a factor of about 5. And the coffee would be cold by the time the transaction was confirmed, not just settled, confirmed. Right, so what merchant's going to love that interaction, and what buyer's going to like that interaction as well. So I also thought it was intriguing where a recent Bitcoin conference, the crypto bros got together, but in terms of paying for the conference fees, they didn't accept Bitcoin. It's too expensive, right? I mean, how ironic is that? So that's a true story. So we don't, we think it's that the cryptocurrencies have transformed or morphed into an asset class rather than a payment mechanism. I would advise most of you to look very carefully at things like ICOs, so initial coin offerings. There's so many scams out there that are just ripping people off. In fact, a lot of the major banks in the US banned their customers from using their credit cards to buy cryptocurrencies recently, Citi, JP Morgan, etc., because of the sort of hype around this market. And look, I know people personally who've made a lot of money out of this, and you almost did. So there's a story there that says let's get rich quick, right? But the opposite's also true. And what I also think is that you've seen a number of quite notable examples where people have lost vast amounts of money and exchanges have been compromised. So the whole infrastructure around cryptocurrencies is really flaky, and so it's definitely buyer beware. One of our latest experiments, for example, is using what we call a stable coin that we would issue into a crypto wallet. Would be backed by ANZ, and we could potentially use that for a cross-border transaction. It would be compliant, it would be transparent, it would be something we would control. And so the fact that we're doing that means that we have confidence in versions of cryptocurrency, but not necessarily the ones in the wild.
Apologise for the smile. I'm going to give you the positive side of this argument.
That wasn't entirely negative.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's very good. Look, I think it's really important to be aware. I checked the numbers this morning. There's 1,578 cryptocurrencies currently available on the CoinMarketCap website. So it's a public website that tracks the public price of each of those currencies on a day-to-day basis. Quickly raise your hands in the room if you have the skills to trade cash currencies already in your business. So you already trade euros, sterling, US dollars. It's a big job and it takes a lot of thought and it takes a lot of process. Your typical mum and dad at home, they don't have those skills. And it takes a lot of learning to do that. And so I see three parts to the argument. I support your views on blockchain technology. I also would put the warning out there that if you want to trade currencies, you need to learn how to do it. And it's not, there are people that just day trade currency and that's their job. Let them continue to do that job. If they choose to trade a different sort of currency, great. To the question of the zoo, Taronga Zoo. 35 years ago, when you used to go to Taronga Zoo, you weren't allowed to take a camera into the zoo. And now you can then you weren't allowed to take a video camera. Now you just take in your iPhone and you can do the lot. So I think we all look for the golden thing, the golden idea that's going to help us make millions and millions of dollars, but then we're very critical when that golden idea comes along. And I'm not saying that go trade cryptocurrency because that's what you're going to make a ton of money doing, but right now, as at today, if you wanted to accept a stable cryptocurrency as a payment method, and we have at best practice 45 different wallets that you can deposit cryptocurrency into to pay for the services. You can choose the one that you want to pay with. Don't pay me with one that's going up because I'll make the benefit once I receive it. Don't pay me with the one going down because I don't want to receive it. But just as an example of an emerging technology that is worth learning about and be critical of it is a thing called US dollar tether. So right now, US dollar tether has the same fluctuations approximately as the US dollar would on a day-to-day basis. It's tethered against Bitcoin as a trading example. It has a blockchain, it has miners verifying it in a decentralized ledger. And right now, today, if you wanted to experiment and take the risk now, while it's a low-cost disaster, then that would be the currency that I would ask you to go to look into in terms of a cryptocurrency. Not Bitcoin, that's the original coin. That's like BlackBerry is for smartphones. Yeah? Has anyone got a BlackBerry? No. So, I think I had an iPhone in 2008 and I've leveraged all the benefits of iPhone technology in my business now. We haven't had desk phones and all that sort of stuff, and we looked at that technology, and I see best practice as the sandbox for our client base. Because if I don't practice it, I don't break it, I don't lose money doing it, then I can't advise my clients and I can't give them guidance. So yes, we've invested in it, yes, we've played with it, we've moved it around between wallets, we've got artificial intelligence trading it, we've got mining machines mining it. It's not our core business, but how can I stand here and confidently say to you, if you want to go do some reading, read up on US dollar tether. You will find that the system got breached. Well, it's a new technology, so did Apple, back in the day. And so, Apple came out with iTunes, everybody criticised it, now everybody's got Netflix. So I just want you to be aware, be critical of the critics, I think is really important. And then the second part to this exercise is to be really saying, okay, well, what does the world look like in 10 years from now? What does my business look like in 10 years from now? And, I actually asked my mother-in-law on the weekend, does she remember getting her first Visa card? Because the world was really critical of Visa and bank card and MasterCard, but look at it now. So I think, in terms of that embracing of technology, as business owners, we're all challenged. How do we innovate? But we're the first to rip down the innovations as they come out, and some of them might fail and some of them might pass. So I think the blockchain technology is fantastic. I was really pleased to hear that you guys are working on like a real-time banking mechanism, because as I was thinking about the challenges for me in business, okay, the coffee shop example, you wouldn't use Bitcoin, you'd use Ethereum, because the blockchain of Ethereum is running really quick at the moment. There was a point in time in the rally at Christmas that the Bitcoin blockchain slowed down to about 24 hours. So your coffee's not only cold, it's stale. So I'm watching the time that the blockchain is taking to move. Kelly here in the room is watching what's moving around the blockchain in terms of size of transactions. Was it 103,000 Bitcoin that moved this week? So we saw 103,000 Bitcoin move this week between a wallet. It's an open ledger. You can go onto bitcoin.org and you can see it moving. So I think we're making ourselves aware, so I can make you aware and I can share my experience, and I think thinking about that's really important. But if I was just to talk about business-to-business transactions in my space, I can be chasing a customer for, say, 20 grand. And I'll call them up, how's that going? You passed your 7, 30, 60, 90 days, and they're like, yeah, it's in the mail. Check's in the mail. Okay, so we don't accept checks anymore. It's only an FPOS, it's a direct deposit transaction. We've made the transaction. I used to have to wait for the bank to, 3 days for it to clear. We had cash flow issues 18 months ago, and I was on the phone to Michael saying, I think I can see the bank clearing transactions at 12. Oh, hang on a minute. No, it's 11, 1 p.m, 3 p.m, 6 p.m, 9 p.m. on a Friday night. I'm pleased to hear that it's instant. Now, in the instance of the current blockchain technology, I can get on the phone to the customer. I can say, this is my address. Please deposit the money into my address. Within a number of seconds on the Ethereum blockchain, my wallet will say pending transaction, and there's my transaction. And there's no third party putting their hand in my pocket for fees, with the exception of the miner doing the verification. We can have the debate about whose fees are cheaper, but there is an emerging trend in the industry to who's involved. And I think it's, my final point is, criticise the critics. Are the critics really being critical, or are they just scared? And then be aware and educate yourself. And that's just every risk in business. So that's the crypto side of things. I think the next thing from a best practice perspective that I'd like to communicate is, when you're choosing a platform, a cloud-based platform if you like, for your transactions of any sort, whether it's your social media transactions because you're posting photos for Instagram, whether it's your CRM, which could be HubSpot, Acelo, Salesforce, etc., whether it's your financial software, Xero, MYOB, look for the marks that are going to help you to trust that site. There is an international standard, ISO 27001, which is the equivalent of, say, 9001. That's the international standard for organisations to set up their data security management system, to implement their data security business plan. So as you're looking at suppliers and choosing providers, a lot of the stuff that we're all using as a cloud-based service is hosted on Amazon Web Services, most of it. They have an ISO 27001 program in place. So looking for that number is really important. Really important to look for that. Does your supplier, does your provider have that accreditation? That'll mean that there's an independent verifier that's looking at numbers, statistics, processes, risk management, breach management, penetration management, all those things that go in the cybersecurity risk management space. And I think that's something for you guys to be aware of, and if you need to write that down, have a look at that. So it's ISO 27001. It's an international standard for organisations to adopt and maintain a strategy for strategic, programmed cybersecurity management.
Thanks, Kobi, Nigel, and Nikki. Who would like to ask a question? This is the tough spot, right? There it is.
Simon's one. Probably this one maybe for Nikki. Advertising dollars across AdWords versus Facebook versus Instagram versus etc. And Amazon directly if you are sold on there. Would you like to share?
For us, Google would be 85%. For us, Google's about 85 to 95%, depending on the month. Sometimes events. We do TV or billboards or radio during our busy season. But Facebook is growing, but it's still a very small amount of our spend, maybe $5,000 a month, compared to maybe $100,000 on Google or 500.
Google's just elevating your listing. So it's not marketing it to the people. It's only working if they're searching for.
Correct. Whereas the billboards and that kind of above the line advertising, you can't put a dollar value to it, how many orders you get back in, but it's branding, so you need to be doing both sides. And I think their service is the best, good service is the best kind of branding advertising you can do.
The most popular costume.
Believe it or not, it's a lederhosen. It's a men's lederhosen costume that we sell thousands and thousands of a year. So many that I expect to see people walking around in them. I don't know what happens to them. Probably Harry Potter after that.
It's got a fetish. Any other questions out there?
Nikki, CRM platform?
It's just an internal thing that we use. Yeah.
Question out there?
My question's probably more forward-looking. I've been in corporate life all my important corporate world and financial services most of my life. Retired, now I was involved in a couple of new startups, and just the way in which things have evolved and changed has staggered me. And yet, some industries have still got quite high barriers to entry. But the way in which the technology is moving, the way in which understanding the market, the way in which people look at how they're going to expand their businesses completely changed. And I know you've talked a lot from different aspects, but how radical do you think change is going to be in the next 10 years compared with the last 10 years? Because for me, everything is speeding up enormously. On the technical side, barriers to entry are disappearing, and yet from a sort of bureaucratic perspective, and I've been involved in financial services, it's getting worse, if anything. And that's contradictory. And whether it's around cryptocurrencies, whether it's around payment systems, whether it's around understanding exactly what your market is, and how you're going to evolve and change and be brave to face up to what that is going forward. It's a fascinating position that we're in, but I'm just interested how radical you think that change will be in the next 10 years.
Nigel.
So the two things that have kept barriers to entry to financial services, banking in particular, has been capital and regulation, right? It's two fundamental, long-standing things. Those remain today. But what's also happened because of the march of technology that you just described, disruptors, as we sometimes call them, and often we call them partners as well, increasingly, have just come in and said, well, that part of the service offering, I don't need to have any capital for. I can be lightly regulated, or I can be regulated outside of that ecosystem. So, yeah, Bitcoin's a great example, right? That happened without any banking. It's completely unregulated, and it serves a purpose. So the interesting thing is that banks, being a bank is still a high barrier to entry, right? There's changes in licensing going on, but the compliance and regulatory burden on financial institutions is only getting bigger. And then there's a regulatory angle to that around data, right? So we've had these disruptors that are taking parts of the payment system, parts of the credit system out of banks and doing those really well, and giving customers good experiences. And now we've got an imminent piece of legislation coming into financial services, first within telcos and energy, around open data. So I mentioned APIs before, so this is services going out to customers. Within 18 months, you as bank customers will be able to go to your financial institution and say, you know that data you've got on me? I'd like you to send that data to that company. And if that company has been certified under that regime, the bank will have to send that data, transaction data, the history of your transactions, your personal details, to whatever extent you're comfortable with that. And they then can use that data, mix it up with a whole bunch of other data, yours and others, and give you services back. So I called this, I was speaking to my boss this morning, Miley Carnegie, who comes from Google. And I said, my view on this world is that we are, from a financial services point of view, we're embarking upon the great fragmentation of financial services. And that's precisely what's happening. Be it because of disruptors, be it because of regulation, or in fact our own customer needs. They want to consume our services more discreetly. They want to consume our services in different venues. They may want to consume our services in an online merchant or another venue rather than a banking portal. So all of these things are happening. As I say, it's not dystopian, it's just realistic. That the great fragmentation of financial services actually is underway. And so we will be a services company. And our ambition would be to ensure that we can drive a number of our own ecosystems around where we have expertise, specialist capability, and where we don't, we'll send our services to those who can aggregate those and give services to customers for what they need. I mean, a great example, I got an Uber over here, probably a bunch of you got Ubers too. I don't have a payment experience with Uber, right? That's one of the great things that Uber's managed to demonstrate to financial services is that people don't get into a cab to pay the fare, they get into the cab to go somewhere. Right? So we've had to reshape the orientation of how we think about our customer experience. They want to buy experiences, they don't want to do banking. They want to get somewhere, buy something, do something, and if there's a payment or some sort of exchange of value in it, well, to the extent possible, can you make that go away? That'd be great.
I've got a comment. I think if I just take the rapid change aspect of your question and go back to that analogy or that example I used with the changing, the average age. And so, like it or not, we're all laggards. We're all using the old technology, everyone in this room. But if you take my 7-year-old son and what his life's going to be like when he turns 18, he will be able to get whatever he wants, whenever he wants it, wherever he wants it. And so the pendulum over the next, say, 12 to 15 years is completely swinging in the opposite direction of centralisation to 100% decentralisation. And where over the last 200 years we've built up, big banks, big governments, big centralisation, I can't help but see that the only way forward is that, say for example, the taxation system, the financial system, it'll be 100% user pays. We've been asking for a user pays taxation system for a very long time. And so when you just talk about tax, for example, the only way that you'll be able to run this country is by taxing sales. And the guy that I pay 120 grand a year that sits down the end of our office to collect tax in our business, GST and the payroll tax, like I've got a member of the tax office, as we all do in our business, that we've got that's the biggest scam in the universe, is that cost that's in our P&L of the tax office. So when you look at that, okay, cryptocurrency, where there's smoke, there's fire. You've got these 1,000 companies that also remember that marketplace is only the size of Google. The market capital is only the size of Google at this point. Not Google, Apple, I apologise. So there is obviously 1,500 CEOs that are super motivated to solve a problem, and they've had some level of success to this point. So let's extrapolate that and say from a change perspective, I can tell you a couple of things. There are going to be a ton of shit business coaches in the marketplace because they can promote themselves on Instagram and turn up and deliver a shit product. So there's going to be more shit advice in the marketplace. So change is not going to be well managed, not as well as it is. Decentralisation of learning. So in this room, when did we do it? Before Christmas, we had our session here, the last one of these sessions in here. One of the senior economists from the bank, Jo, she spoke about 20 years from now, what are the exports that this country has? And she talked, one of the big things that made my ears prick up was decentralised education. And I thought I'd pack up the house when my son finishes high school and we'll go and we'll chuck him in Harvard and I'll go just pretty much skiing the whole time while he's studying. That was my idea, right? We live at Colorado Plateau, pack up the house, let's go. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen because education will be decentralised. So, and Jack is a really good example. He's really all over video editing and his workspace is decentralised right now. So I think thinking about change, we're going to be managing change ourselves. We're not going to be managing change from an organisational perspective. I think that's what I see happening across all of our clients. It's individuals are being held accountable for managing their own change. And I think the last thing is that we talk a lot about in our business is the average age of our contact now is thinking more about wanting to enjoy what they do. And the days are gone of getting on the bus. Like, why do we just invest in double-decker yellow buses when people don't want to go on double-decker yellow buses to the city anymore for the Northern Beaches? So all of the younger generations that you guys all are in contact with every day, they just want to do what they want to do. And they want to do it when they want to do it and how they want to do it. And they live a very, very low-cost lifestyle as a result. So all those infrastructure elements that we talk about and we're used to when we're built on, they're not interested in mortgages. You know, they're not interested in having all of that over their head. They just want to go travel, do their thing. And that age is going to get, you know, that group of people are going to get older and older and older.
Much more lowbrow answer to these guys, but just as a very, we look at 10 years, what will our business look like in 10 years? So from a purely retail kind of perspective, we imagine it's not a matter of are you online or offline, you're everywhere. So people will go online, research a product. I mean, this happens now, of course, go into the store, have a look at it. They might go home and buy it later. They might buy it on their phone while they're in the store. They might go into the store, try it on, buy it there on their phone, or they'll buy it online and we'll ship it to the store and they'll go to the store and pick it up. Or they'll buy it in the store but say, can you ship it to me? It's just, the payments will be instant. I love that idea of taking away the payments. There won't be cash registers. The sales assistant will help you right there and then with a fingerprint or whatever. Walk past me with your phone and we'll pay. Yeah. And another interesting one is that if you've got your phone with you and you say, can you deliver it to me, that the delivery guy will just know where me is, where you're not in an address, you're not, you know, in your office, you're standing on the street corner, like catch me if you can sort of delivery. So it's just what you were saying, wherever you are, I want it where I want it, when I want it, the way I want it, and I don't give a shit whether it's online or physical retail. It's all one. To our kids, it's all one. Yeah.
Great commentary from Nikki, Nigel and Kobi. I guess my 2 cents is I think everything old is new again. All the technology is really interesting, blockchain, whether you remove payments or not. A very interesting comment that came from Nikki was that really at the end of the day, she was all our advertising when it comes down to customer service. People aren't going to change, the DNA of people hasn't changed at all. People remember how you made them feel a lot longer than they remember what you said. And so great brands are using technology, they're using great service, they're using colours, type, font, anything they can, music, the layout of the store, whatever they can to create an impression that lasts for a long time, not just in people's minds, but in their hearts and in their bones. That's ultimately what builds value with people. In our business, you know, I've said that, and to pick up one of Kobi's comments, that, you know, there's a lack of quality across most industries. And if you look in retail, there's still people selling $25,000 handbags, and those handbags have more than 2.5-year weight on them. The margins of those businesses are the highest in retail, and they're growing at 20 to 25% a year. That's a luxury sector. What does the luxury sector do that other sectors don't? Well, they primarily do fantastic customer experience. It's 5 senses. They're fantastic at influencing people, and their level of service is by far and away better than you can find anywhere else. And so young girls who don't have any money, and young men, are prepared to save their money to go and buy one bag rather than buy 5,000 bags as they once used to. And so this great contribution that China has given us, now that you can press a button and get 1 million widgets an hour that are 10 cents each, people are turning back to say, well, what's the craft in that? Where did it come from? What energy was consumed? Was it built in an ethical manner? And does it reflect my own personal values? The final comment I'd make is in every business, you get a 30% increase in whatever line of your P&L, balance sheet, or anything else that you want to pay attention to tomorrow. And that is that Nelson Mandela was once somebody's employee. Imagine how embarrassed that boss is. Steve Jobs was once somebody's employee. People often come through businesses and they're almost never well led nor well managed. And so inspiring people and encouraging them to be the best they can within your business can deliver a 30% increase day on day on day within your business. Because most people don't even know the capacity they have. The legacy of the past is basically not treating people very well. The businesses that have done sensationally well have been great at using leadership and management, whatever tech or whatever they could, to actually unlock the full capacity of the people within their businesses. The best thing about our business is quality about people. The best thing about quality of people is giving them the opportunity to be better off, to be the best they can be. Because we make the people the best they can be their best professional. You make plenty of money out of that as well, which is great. Right? Nobody likes talking about that. I like talking about blockchain, and I like talking about making money, especially the young ones who say, I want everything where I want it, how I want it, when I want it, but I don't really like working. That one, I'm looking forward to the great comeuppance of that scenario. It's been really great to get everyone together today. I know we've got some thank yous for everyone. I want to thank ANZ. I want to thank Danny and Chris from my team and James and his team for putting everything together today. I can't recommend the location more wholeheartedly. One of the best things about these events, it takes me to places I haven't been and meet people I haven't met. I've had a great time. I hope you guys have had a great time too. Thank you.